Kuja nami tuungane twache kuzozana, watu wa upendo, hauna dui, hauna kifani
Hello everybody, welcome to Africa for Dummies. We know we've been going for a very long time, but thank you so much for keeping up with us and all the love and support. We've been trying to work in the background, trying to get some things out there, so please watch out for the things that are going to be coming out soon. Also, as usual, please, if you want to give us some more feedback, make sure to give us some reviews. Make sure you give us some stars on whatever platform you're watching this on. Make sure to follow us on all our platforms. It's Africa for Dummies on everything. And yeah, just hit that notification bell if you want to keep up with us. We've got a lot of things that we need to definitely go into. We've a lot of things that we've certainly missed. And today we're tackling something that is very, very important in my view. And we have a very special guest that I'm going to let Zenge introduce himself and apologize for all the for holding us back as Africa for Dummies for a long time. And he'll explain his part and introduce our guest today.
Yeah, of course, it's Zenge, I was going to say as you know, but maybe as you remember, because we have been out for quite some time.
Yeah.
So basically, today's podcast is going to be on a major election in Africa, on Kenya. So for people that don't know, Kenya is quite a massive economy on the African continent. And we are joined by someone who knows this topic best, Sylvanus Wekesa, a Kenyan researcher with King's College London at the Africa Leadership Center, who's just completed his PhD. Welcome to our show.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate for you hosting me here.
No, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today. And just to jump right in, I think maybe not too many people are familiar with what goes on in Kenya, but why do you think for example, I come from Zambia, right? Why do you think these elections are important or do you think these elections are even important for people in other countries to even pay attention to? And what do you think, and what separates these elections from the previous ones that have occurred? Because like when you look at other countries, for example, like Uganda, you obviously know who the winner is. And it's like, does it really matter at the end of the day? So now it's like, does this one really matter as well?
Thank you. So Kenya finds itself in a very unique position, especially within the region it operates from. For the longest time, Kenya had been classified as an oasis of peace among countries that are always embroiled in turmoil. And about 2007 elections, which experienced some extreme violence, traditionally, Kenya has been very peaceful. And Kenya is important for a number of reasons. One, Kenya is an anchor state within the Horn and the Great Lakes region. In terms of peace processes in the region, Kenya has played an important role in all the states around it that have been engaged in war. Kenya midwifed the South Sudan peace process. Kenya continues to play a role in Somalia. Recently, Kenya just entered the Democratic Republic of Congo by sending soldiers in the DRC. Kenya has played an important role in multiple peace efforts within the region. So the election in Kenya becomes very important because everybody is watching who comes next, and will that person continue with the peace processes that Kenya has initiated, or will there be a change? So it becomes a very important country because everybody now, not just within Africa, but even the whole world, the US, the United Kingdom, China, everybody's looking at Kenya as an important partner and player in most of the geopolitical interests. And also not just forget that Kenya recently had an unpermanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. So pushed by all those factors, these elections becomes very important, not just in the region, not on the African continent, but generally in the whole global world politics. So what makes this election special is that it's a transitional election. The current President Uhuru Kenyatta's 2 terms have come to an end. So we are electing a new president.
Oh, so he's not going to be...
No, he's not
okay.
contesting.
Okay.
He's not contesting. So this is the third, actually, election where we are going to change presidents. So the first one was in 2002, where President Daniel Arap Moi, the late, had served for 24 years, and he stepped down. Then in 2013, President Mwai Kibaki, also the late, had served his 2 terms. And now President Uhuru Kenyatta, he has served his 2 terms. Also, this is the second election under the new constitution.
Okay.
Actually, the third. We promulgated a new constitution in 2010. So Uhuru Kenyatta has served his 2 terms under the new constitution. So this is the third election under the new constitution. So basically, we can say the democracy has held. The fact that there haven't been much contestation around the whole issue. So the election becomes very special in terms of, will Kenya have a peaceful transition as it has been witnessed before, or maybe this one will be something different?
Yeah, and thanks for the rundown of the sort of the political and constitutional history of Kenya. So you said this current president now has reached the max of terms that he can run, which is 2 years. Uhuru Kenyatta shall be leaving State House. I believe that's what you call it, right? It's not a presidential palace. I know some Francophone countries call it presidential palaces. So you'll be leaving the State House in a few days' time. The election is on the 9th of August. And who exactly, who exactly are the main candidates? Who are the people that we should watch? And who perhaps are the ones that simply just stand out? And what are the political ideologies? I know, in Africa, it's not all the time that people pay attention to political ideologies. Sometimes it could be the personality, or it could be simply just what exactly those people are benefiting directly from those politicians. So basically, who are the main candidates, and what exactly are they standing for?
So in this election, it's also quite unique because the number of presidential candidates have reduced. I think with the new constitution, the law made it very strict and very stringent. They put stringent measures on who qualifies to run for presidency. So the number has been reducing every election. So in this election, we have 4 presidential candidates.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have Raila Odinga, who is running on Azimio la Umoja coalition. We have the current Deputy President William Ruto, who's running on a Kenya Kwanza coalition. We have George Wajakoya, who's running on a Roots party. And we have David Mwaure, who's running on a Gano party. So all those are the only 4 candidates. Now, in terms of ideology, Raila Odinga is campaigning on, just from the name of his coalition, on a unity platform. He's campaigning because his candidature was born out of a handshake or coming together between him and the current president. In 2017, the election was heavily disputed. It went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court nullified the election. And Raila Odinga boycotted participating in the rerun of the election as ordered by the Supreme Court. Now, he went further ahead and swore himself in.
Yeah, I remember that.
There was a lot of division in that election. So later on in 2018, President Kenyatta and President Raila are approached. They shook hands publicly, and they embarked on what they called building bridges. So to bring the country together.
That was the handshake.
That was the handshake. So basically, Raila's ideology right now on the platform he's running on a unity platform, bringing the country together. His closest challenger, the current Deputy President William Ruto, is running on a populist ideology of the haves and the have-nots. So he has christened
This is
it,
where the hustler narrative comes.
he has christened it as the hustler versus dynasty. And by that, because the current president is the son of the Kenya's first president. Yeah. Raila Odinga's father was Kenya's first vice president, independent Kenya. So the two of them, according to the deputy president, they belong to the dynasty. Yeah. William Ruto fashions himself as the son of a nobody. His father wasn't one of the key politicians in the independence struggle. So that's why he brands himself as a hustler. So he's running on a hustler versus dynasty campaign, where his ideology is the people first. And his slogan is every job matters. So whatever you're doing, you have to be factored in the national conversation. George Wajakoya, on the other hand, he's a maverick. He's running on legalizing the consumption of marijuana. Yeah. And that message has resonated very well with the youth.
Wait, so the Wajakoya, what is he trying to? Is just recreational marijuana, medical marijuana?
Like he wants to make marijuana not just recreational and medicinal. The whole marijuana will be legal under his government.
Oh, I see.
He has very funny ideas, like for instance, the issue of the debt with China. He has the bizarre suggestion that he will boost snake farming. And then
farming?
Yeah, repay the Chinese debt by giving them snakes.
When there's been an establishment for a long time, you never know. These solutions might resonate with someone.
So he has excited the base. He has excited the masses. And then the fourth candidate is ethno-religious. He's a pastor. David Maure is a pastor. He's running a very religious, ethno-Christian values, espoused as the values. That's the fourth candidate. So the last two candidates were Jakoya and Maure, as per the polls, they are not even polling close to 5%. So we can call them the fringe candidates. So the contest is between Raila Odinga, who is being backed by the current president.
That's very interesting. You never really see that happen.
Who has fallen out with his boss, running on a different party.
Oh, okay. So the falling out happened because, is there a reason for because you never really see a former president from a different party advocating or like supporting opposition. So that's kind of weird.
Yeah, we don't know what happened between the president and the deputy. There are many conspiracy theories what caused the fallout. But a lot has changed because in 2013,
when Kenyatta got elected.
Yes, the current deputy president and the president belong to the same party. In 2017, they belong to the same party. So now in this election, the ruling party, the Jubilee Party, has disintegrated. So the deputy president left the ruling party. He formed his own party and he's running. It's called the United Democratic Alliance. He's running on that.
That's very
The opposition, the Orange Democratic Movement, led by Raila Odinga, replaced the deputy president's wing after they bolted out of the ruling party, and they formed a coalition with the ruling party.
Wow.
So the main opposition party formed a coalition with the ruling party. And then the ruling party became the opposition. So part of the ruling party became the opposition and the opposition became government.
Lots of chess moves going on the last few years in Kenya, it seems.
Yeah, so what has changed is President Kenyatta is supporting his fierce opponent in the past two elections. He has endorsed him while he's campaigning against his own deputy.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. And I mean, you wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question. So Uhuru Kenyatta, he's barred from standing again.
Yes.
So what interest does Uhuru Kenyatta have in supporting Raila Odinga? And especially, I could imagine that it might make for very awkward cabinet meetings with his deputy president, considering they were kind of like bros, they were indicted, they were charged by the ICC and the case was dropped. Yeah. But they have been through quite a lot since the 2007 election. and Raila Odinga was on the opposite side of that, those incidences in 2007 and beyond. So what exactly does Uhuru Kenyatta expect from Raila Odinga, President Raila Odinga, considering him and even his family's dynasty have been on the opposite sides of, the Kenyatta, quote unquote dynasty?
In my opinion, I mean, as everyone says, in politics, there are no permanent enemies. Neither are there permanent friends. Yeah, it's just interest. And historically, the president's family, the Kenyatta family, have benefited from state contracts, state support to build a massive business empire. Like they are the biggest landowners in Kenya.
Oh wow!
They are the biggest. I mean, you walk into a supermarket, you pick milk, it belongs to the president's family.
Really?
Yes, they own the biggest dairy company in East Africa.
Wow!
Wow!
And Kenyatta is one of the richest Kenyans himself, is it?
Yeah. So they've invested in Uganda. They've bought out Inyange dairies in Rwanda. They've really expanded. If you fly Kenya Airways, the food you consume is a company owned by the president's family.
Wow!
So in terms of the business tentacles, they are spread far and wide.
Right.
And Raila Odinga, he's 78 years old now. The Raila Odinga right now is not the Raila Odinga of 2007 who was calling for the upstage of the status quo. The Raila Odinga we have right now is old, he's
mellowed down,
and he represents a safe pair of hands to protect the interests of the Kenyatta family.
Yeah. And the thing is, Kenyatta, sorry Nathan, before we go to the next question. The thing is, Uhuru Kenyatta himself is quite young, like for a retiring president.
Yeah.
He's 60 or something like
He's
that.
62.
Yeah. And you have someone who, I mean, it's quite easy to claim that Raila Odinga will be used as a puppet. A 60-year-old outgoing, very charismatic president, 78-year-old, sort of supposedly worn out, exhausted.
The coalition they have formed, President Kenyatta is the chairman of that coalition. So he's not going anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah. He's not going anywhere. And personally, I don't think Uhuru Kenyatta reads history, because there is a myriad examples on the African continent that the chosen successor always stands against the supporter. In Zambia, Mzee Mwanawasa went against Frederick Chiluba.
Went to Angola as well.
In Angola, Lorenzo has gone against the Dos
Santos.
Yeah. So in Congo, Tshisekedi tried to wiggle himself out of the Kabila wing. So
yeah,
I just don't know if our current president reads history. Of course, Raila will not want to be labeled as a puppet. He will want to be his own person when he gets into power.
Yeah.
So he will definitely try and wiggle himself out of that arrangement. But in William Ruto, I think the bitter fallout between the deputy president and the president has scared the president in such a way that if this gentleman gets power, he might come.
Yeah, so I think you mentioned in passing that as you're speaking, I think you brought up a part that I remember in Kenya's history, which was, I think for me, it was a moment when I stopped trusting these election institutions like the EU observers and things like that, because like there's a way in which when you hear like EU observer, AU, what you name it, you kind of put trust in them. But I think was it the previous Kenyan election where I think that was like clear for the whole world to see that either they just don't care, like they just weren't really paying attention But you had a situation where, the EU observers said that there was no election malpractice, but then the Constitutional Court found that there was actual malpractice. And so the question is, are there any things that have been done in Kenya internally? Because clearly we've seen that international observers are not as reliable, I guess, if I could use that term. There are things that Kenya has put in place to make sure that any malpractice is found, or to ensure that malpractice doesn't occur?
I mean, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, the body charged with managing and conducting the elections, has been caught up in a lot of challenges. I think going into this election, the level of trust and confidence in the IEBC, I think, is very low. So there've been some news for bad reasons. Yeah. So recently, some Venezuelans, a company called, I think, Smartic. It's a Venezuelan company that was to provide the technology for this election.
Wait, so
a Venezuelan
Venezuelan company is going to help.
Wait, I'm sorry, but of all countries, Venezuelan company.
And then some gentlemen were arrested at the airport with stickers for the election.
Oh no.
And those are the Venezuelan, of course, the IEBC came out and said, yeah, those people were contracted by the IEBC to provide technology for the election. But such issues, and then they still dispute over the manual and the electronic voter register. Yeah. So just yesterday, the High Court ruled that the IEBC should use the manual register as opposed to only using the electronic register. That is 3 days to the election. Wow. And then the independent audit done by the KPMG auditors found that there were 14 ghost presiding officers within. Wow. And there was 2 million votes.
Wow.
So how are the candidates? Have any candidates threatened not to recognize the election if it doesn't go their way?
Isn't it already too soon?
Should people expect 2017 repetition of that?
Raila's coalition have been very heavy attacking the Independent Electoral Boundary Commission and its officers. They've been criticizing and they have litigated. They're the ones who went to court to compel them to use the manual register. Yeah. Now, on the other hand, William Ruto's Kenya Kwanza have been defending the IEBC, saying, look, we are confident in this election, we should let the IEBC do its work. So because of the pressure of the international community, everybody is saying they will accept the results, only if, with a condition, the elections are free and fair. But in my opinion, I think all these noises around IEBC is basically to set up an opportunity for a petition once the election results are announced. Because so you first doubt the credibility of the body, you cast aspersions on the character of the people running. There have been lots of audio leaks of these political actors meeting the officials of the IEBC. There have been allegations that the chairman of the IEBC was seen with so on. So they all these are geared towards casting the aspersions of the credibility of this body. And when the elections are announced, they will dispute them.
Yes. I think we can go to our next question, the issue of ethnic baiting.
Yeah.
In 2007, that was the prime reason, or some of the reasons that the election inflamed to such a level, where I think I'm not sure of the figure, something north of 1,000 people were killed in that election. Which for our viewers may not know was some of the reasons where Uhuru Kenyatta, the outgoing president, and the deputy president were put on trial for in the ICC, although it was acquitted. Now, William Ruto was speaking to the BBC recently, and he said that basically Kenya is past this ethnic politics. There have been some concerns, but would you say that he's telling the truth, or is it something to still be concerned about?
I think this election, it's very unique because for once there have been very little violence during the campaign period. Like, you can actually point out where the violence has been. There haven't been much violence. Number two, it's true the ethnic rhetoric has toned down a great leap. In terms of, for once, the election debate is around issues. The high cost of living, the healthcare, the education, and everything. So one thing, in my opinion, I have to give it to William Ruto is this hustler narrative he came up with. It has totally changed the narrative of the Kenyan politics. It forced everyone to start discussing about issues. Yeah,
Economy,
the economy, especially the way the economy is performing, the infrastructure projects, the role of China, and the date and everything. So in terms of ethnic rhetoric, it's not pronounced. Of course, if you go to the local seats, the governor seats, the member of parliament and the senators, perhaps it's more heavily pronounced there. However, in terms of the coalition building, it's still ethnic driven. Yeah, in terms of how you build a broader coalition. So the Kikuyus, the Luos, the Kalenjins, all of them, the ethnic blocks still matter, but that only comes in when you're mobilizing for people to vote. But in terms of addressing the issues, the election has been largely about issues and not the ethnicity.
Then also another interesting thing is also aside from perhaps a market reduction in ethnic politics, is also we are seeing the female vice presidential candidate as well. I think that's it.
Yeah,
Raila Odinga.
There's a symbolic aspect of nominating the first woman running mate of a major key political
candidate. This is the first time.
Yeah, a running mate.
A running mate.
Yeah, but historically, she ran for presidency in 2013. So it's not something new. And we had a woman presidential candidate in 1997. That's Charity Ngilu. So I think for me, yes, it's a good step forward, but we forget that we have a big conundrum in terms of implementing a constitutional requirement of having 2/3 majority not belonging to either gender. In the last parliament, the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice had recommended that parliament be dissolved because it doesn't meet the constitutional requirement of the 2/3 gender. Yeah. So we still have that issue. The women representation is still very low, not as where the constitution has said it should be done. So even going to the election, despite having Martha Karua as the running mate of Raila Odinga, the issue of the 2/3 gender remains unresolved. So, and none of the two sides, none of Raila Odinga or William Ruto have said how they're going to address that issue of the 2/3 gender. So it's a step forward. But the bigger issue remains, how do you address the 2/3 gender rule?
You know, most people would sort of surf Kenyan politics. If you just surf Kenyan politics on YouTube or wherever, you see some videos of numerous helicopters flying into venues, flying into rallies, and it looks extremely wealthy. And it looks like you have to have an enormous amount of money. And you said they have restricted the amount of people that can now run for an election. And then now you see the amount of helicopters that these few amount of people have when they're, crisscrossing the country. Is Kenya's election basically now for the super wealthy elite, or is there room for grassroots type of politicians? Don't have the backing that these dynasties. And I mean, William Ruto, whilst he's not a member of the dynasty, he's a very wealthy man.
Yes.
So is there space for people that don't have money to join African politics in general, and also Kenyan politics, because of how it looks just from a layman's perspective?
No, the Kenyan politics and the Kenyan electoral process is absolutely expensive. I think BBC did recently a study on how much it will cost for you to run for the various seats. Yeah. And I think they said that for you to run for something like the presidency, you'll need to the high of 500,000 US dollars. Yeah.
500,000. That's for president. That's for presidency.
That's for president, and that's on the lower side. Yeah.
Wow.
So it explains why our electoral contests are very vicious. It's a zero-sum game because the benefit, people need to recoup what they've spent.
The investment, yeah.
I think our parliamentarians are one of the highest paid in the world, you know.
In the world?
Yes. They're one of the
highest.
Not
just Africa, the whole world.
Yeah. Like
this is a country in the African continent. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
So like the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, I think last week came up with a new structure for the salaries of the members of parliament. And it kind of deducted some of the allowances that they benefited. You know, they get, because let me just give an example. When a member of parliament is elected, you get a free car grant. Of course, those 4x4. You get, of course, there's the healthcare, the medical bill, and then they give themselves a gratuity. So after the end of this term, they're giving themselves a gratuity. So whether you get re-elected, if you get re-elected, you still get the gratuity. After the term. Yeah. And this is a country where we have a sitting, I mean, the former, because there's the remuneration package for the former president, former vice president, former whatever. These are people who are earning pension for being former vice president, but they are still contesting to run for president. So it's a very lucrative, profession. Yeah. And it explains why even now the business community has to invest and support some of these candidates for their own benefits. The corruption, the rent seek is very high. So corruption is what drives all this.
Yeah, that's a very good segue into this is a question that just popped up in my mind. There was a video that I saw of this, you know, the radical candidate Wajakoya, sorry. And he said something that was actually quite compelling. He said something along the lines of, you know, if you are suspected of being corrupt in Japan, you are so ashamed that you commit suicide. If you are suspected of being corrupt in China, you are in for the death sentence. If you are suspected of being corrupt in the UK, you are jailed. And then in Kenya, you are elected to parliament.
Yeah, Wajakoya came up with the thing. He said something. He said in China, people are hanged. So he said under his government, the people are going to be hanged. But all those choppers you see being used in campaigns, a good percentage of that is fueled by corruption money. You know, all these politicians, even if you look at the Deputy President William Ruto, he claims he's a hustler. He comes from a humble background, but he is an extremely wealthy person. Yeah, if you read the newspapers, there are a plethora of stories about how he's acquired wealth here and there. Raila Odinga's family is extremely wealthy. I mean, and if you trace in any way, you know, the way you read about Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, the way they build their companies from scratch and what have you.
Right.
These gentlemen, there's no industry. You know, but they're extremely wealthy, you know. So it's Kenya is very difficult for a commoner to rise up to that position.
So is it very difficult for someone to rise up without being corrupt?
It's very difficult. You need to be able to have collected enough rent.
Wow. So the system is also forces you to be, even if you come in clean, by the time you reach presidential candidate level.
If you try your cleanliness, you'll find yourself out very quickly.
Wow.
To conform. So we have a law capping on election spending, but again, how do you implement that? Yeah, we tried setting up. There's a new law, the political parties funding, where the political parties are funded by the taxpayers. So it's based on the proportion, how many members you get, and then you get the government funds you in that. Yeah, so perhaps it's still baby steps. Maybe if they strictly implement that law, we will be able, the country will be able to monitor. We will be able to tell how much people are spending in their campaigns and how much they're fundraising. What is your money and how many people are giving you? So the issue of fundraising is it's a dicey issue. Nobody knows where the money is coming from.
The thing is, you've mentioned, I think, some things that are quite alarming, I think, as you said, a lot of these guys are earning. I mean, I didn't even know that it was the highest paid MPs in the whole world. When you look at Europe, for example, the UK, you look at MPs literally riding bicycles, and stuff like that. But then, this is, I don't want to say it's a poor country, but, it has high rates of poverty. And yet, you have politicians living like they're, I don't know, trust fund kids, So the question is,
you can't, for instance, if you just came and sold ideas, nobody will listen to you.
Really?
There's an activist in Kenya called Boniface Mwangi. He tried contesting for a member of parliament.
Yeah.
He ran on a platform of ideas, and he tried even fundraising from people. He was conducting a fundraiser, telling people, please support me, fund me. And people were telling him, if you don't have money, why are you contesting?
Yeah.
Why are you? This game is for the big boys and the big women. If you're poor, why are you contesting for the seat? So it's been associated with that. Like, it's a culture that if you make it to the corporate world and you become a CEO and you make a good salary, automatically people see you as a future politician. It's because people associate.
So with wealth, people expect the wealth, the power to come with the wealth eventually.
Absolutely.
So then the question would be, do you see, realistically, from your personal perspective, do you see any change coming with the new president after these elections? Do you see any significant change, or the status quo is going to remain the same?
The status quo will remain. I mean, our political culture and based on our political history, the interests run so deep for you to overturn the whole system.
Is there any voter apathy in Kenya? What's the level of enthusiasm towards the actual election? I
think, so just before I answer that one, if you look at the two candidates in terms of change, Raila Odinga, if you look at his 10-point agenda, he is, I think, agenda point 10 speaks of administrative continuity. Yeah, that tells you there's no change that is going to happen.
Basically,
yeah. William Ruto, on the other side, as much as he's running on a hustler dynasty, he knows very well he needs those dynasties to maintain calmness and stability. So there's no radical.
The ones that run the firm, basically.
Yeah, there's no radical change he's going to do to upset the system. Perhaps a little bit of pocket of reforms here and there, but generally the status quo will remain. In terms of voter apathy, the mobilization is always ethnic. So the one region that everybody is looking at, the Mount Kenya region, the Kikuyu community, which is the tribe of the current President Uhuru Kenyatta, doesn't have
the largest tribe in Kenya.
They don't have a candidate. So there are some skeptics who think them lacking a candidate will create some voter apathy because people will not have a reason to come out and vote. And the other pockets where people feel like their leader has not been included in this coalition, or their leader is not playing a key role in this coalition. So such loyalists, such loyal supporters and followers will not have an incentive to come out and vote because their person is not on the ticket.
They don't feel represented in the ticket.
So, yeah. Number two, another issue that might contribute to voter apathy is the status of the economy, and the cost of living has become extremely high and people have become very disillusioned with politicians. So people will be like, why vote? Why do I vote? And nothing is going to change. There's that.
Yeah.
People have resigned to fate, Even if I vote, I don't vote, there's nothing that will change. So why go stand on the queue for 2 hours, vote for somebody who will not even change my state of living? So there's a high chance that there will be high voter apathy, simply because the way these politicians have managed the country in the past.
So there's not really much of a radical change that will be coming out of this election. So is there any form of, is there any surprise? How the US elections, they have a thing called October surprise before November. Either an email gets leaked or some really lurid voice recording gets leaked, as we saw with the Donald Trump election. Is there any surprises left in the next few days? Or
all the opinion polls point to a Raila Odinga win. Okay, and just like in previous elections, the opinion polls have always portrayed Raila Odinga as a winning candidate until the elections happen. Okay, so for me, the biggest surprise in this election that we expect in this election is the turnout. That will be the biggest shocker, and it will leave certain candidates really need the turnout to be high for them to stand a chance. So for me, the voter turnout is going to be the biggest surprise in the election. Will people turn out massively to vote, or there will be voter apathy, which we've discussed in just a few minutes ago? So for me, that will be the biggest surprise. Number two, there's this concept of the silent voters, the shy voters who are not speaking and who are not saying. What is their number? How substantial are they?
Silent minority, silent majority.
Silent majority. So, and that ties again to the turnout. So the biggest surprise in the election will be the turnout, because that turnout will determine who becomes Kenya's next president.
Wow.
Historically, when Kenya got independence in 1963, and Jomo Kenyatta became the first president.
Uhuru Kenyatta's father.
Yeah, the current president's father. And Jaramogi Odinga became the vice president, the father to the current former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And then they fell out in 1969, a very bitter fallout that has come to define Kenya's political history. So the fallout between Jomo Kenyatta and Jaramogi is what brought about the rivalry between the Kikuyus and the Luos, which has totally defined our politics.
Because the Odinga family is Luo.
Now, the politics have revolved around these families. It became so Odinga's choice to protest and join the opposition became a personal affair. So the whole protest movement was built around an individual. So Jaramogi Odinga, the late Jaramogi Odinga, becomes the face of the opposition against oppression. Okay. Yeah. And then you have Kenyatta on the other hand, you have Daniel Moi on the other hand, representing the status quo, protecting their turf enviously.
Yeah.
So our politics, and because of these families, by virtue of being in positions of authority, they made money. And then once the colonial government was moving, they made money. They acquired massive pieces of land, the whole nationalization of some of the industries, some of their families benefited and bought some of these. So they made money. Yeah. So they have perpetually continued to control the state affairs, whether they're in opposition or whether they're in power. Yeah.
So that's why it's very difficult to see much of a change.
It's difficult to separate these families from the state affairs. And that's why William Ruto's candidature is very problematic to them. He is an outsider.
It brings the question, what do you think it would take to see actual change in that case? Because everything seems very pessimistic. And I definitely understand that there are definitely people who benefit from the status quo and would like to keep it that way. So the question is, what do we as youth just, we actually did a podcast, I think that was like last year, I think. It was about gambling. And as we're doing the research, we discovered there's people in Kenya are now becoming, especially young people in Kenya, becoming so indifferent about their future, that they're willing to literally take money for studies and just literally blow it to gambling. So as a young person, should we have hope, or is there something that we can do to change the status quo? Because the way it seems to be going is seems to be like a dynasty. It's either this family, this family, this family, or as you said, maybe a wealthy person. So it doesn't seem very optimistic. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel, in your
Unfortunately,
opinion? I've really been trying.
The answer just started with unfortunately.
As a society, we are stuck in between a rock and a hard place, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because the two stark choices, Raila Odinga and William Ruto, they're not different. They're not much that. Okay, Raila is running on a platform of change, a platform of anti-corruption crusade based on his history. But his short stint in government as a prime minister, his office was dogged with so many corruption, so much corruption.
Yeah.
He has been hanging around with the same corrupt fellows that he's been condemning. They're the ones funding his campaign, for instance. So I think Kenya, we are in a place where we choose the lesser evil.
Yeah.
Between the two.
I see.
Because
between two evils,
they're more of the same. So we choose a lesser evil. So I think the way elections are structured, I don't think we can find change. I don't think we will have the Zambia moment, because Hichilema, I don't know if Zambians consider him as an outsider or he's an insider.
It's pretty interesting. Is that what people are calling it now? A Zambia moment. I'm pretty proud. I'm pretty proud.
We are hoping, because Hichilema had also run like a couple of times. He couldn't win.
Like 10 years,
6 times.
Yeah, and Raila Odinga actually is questioning his election and saying if it happened in Zambia, it can also happen here.
But they're actually both Hichilema, Zambia's president, and Raila Odinga, both perennial opposition figures. They will contest perennial. Losers.
Raila, this is his 5th time.
So perhaps that's where he thinks perhaps this time it could work.
Yeah, he's thinking.
But obviously there's different. Hichilema was never formally in government.
Yeah,
he's much younger.
Yes,
he positioned himself as the youth, the youths like. So whereas Raila Odinga, it seems Ruto is the.
And you see now, even you've raised a very good point. You've raised a very good point. People, there's nothing new Raila is bringing. People know you've been part of this mess before, and that's why you have to give it to William Ruto for fashioning himself around the hustler thing, because he knew that has been Raila's constituency all along. The lesser people in the society, the people.
It's supposed to be very popular in the urban, densely populated areas.
That used to be his vote base. But now, him aligning with Kenyatta, the same status quo he's built his political career around, fighting, he simply went to bed with the enemy. And William Ruto capitalized on that and inherited a huge part of his voting base, the lesser people in the society. So for Raila, his most loyal supporters and perhaps his critics be like, all along you've just been one of them. You only needed an opportunity.
Sort of, why should we trust you?
Why should we trust you? So in my opinion, I don't think there'll be much change. I think, as they say, you might change the forest, but the monkeys are still the same.
That's a very good one.
For
me,
okay.
I don't know if you want to ask some question. I wanted to
no. I was basically going to close, but you can ask.
I wanted to ask a last one just to bring it into the continental, context, since we started like that. Both continental and internationally. Obviously, Kenya has been considered an ally of the United States historically. The Kenyatta and Moi presidency was very aligned to the West during those days. And from what I gather, although Jaramogi Odinga, the vice president, was like somewhat more to the east, perhaps. So will anything change in Kenya's foreign stature, especially when it comes to like the Ukraine war? What position will they have when it comes to the Ukraine war? If, say, Ruto becomes president or Odinga becomes president, will they be more? Is anything going to change? Significantly in their international relations of Kenya when it comes to Congo, when it comes to Somalia? Raila Odinga sent troops to Somalia, I think, when he was
a prime minister. He was part
prime
of it.
minister.
In terms of foreign policy, the two individuals will have to contend with what President Kenyatta has set in motion.
Obviously, there's the China factor with the infrastructure.
Yes, because the issue of the Chinese date, they're talking over it. No, nobody's talking over restructuring the date, but they're already tied. There's nothing they can do. They will have to find a way to deal with China. Again, the issue of DRC, already Kenya has sent troops to DRC. Kenya is a key player in the East African community. The new president will have to contend with that. On the issue of the US, Kenya remains an important ally in the fight against terrorism. So they will have to find a way of continuing to work with the US. Kenya just signed a trade deal with the United Kingdom in one of the few late events of President Kenyatta's regime.
I must say, we were discussing with Nathan actually about how quite skillful Kenyatta's sort of tenure has been in terms of
on the foreign policy. To be honest, on the foreign policy front, he has done extremely well for the country. If you consider someone, and Nathan was even like, he might be a legend, because if you consider someone who was wanted by the ICC, the first president ever, sitting president, to have been wanted by the ICC, to have first been acquitted, and then maintained and then from what I remember, I think before COVID, the growth rate was average of 5% per year. And then, despite having about 3-4 terrorist attacks, major terrorist attacks, from my view, it looks very admirable how he has skillfully managed to position Kenya as a reliable country, investment country, even on the the UN Security Council, as you mentioned earlier. Absolutely, on the foreign policy front, President Kenyatta has done extremely. You can even see in Ethiopia the Tigray crisis, the way the TPLF are telling the African Union, we don't want Obasanjo as the mediator. We want Uhuru Kenyatta to be the mediator.
So there's really that level of trust, and
so his charisma, his personality, he's always, people call him the hugging president. He's always hugging his peers. He's always. To be honest,
he looks like a cool. He looks like a guy you'd see at a pub with, or just chill with.
And he's always very cheerful when you see him dealing with his contemporaries and his peers on the continent. So I think that's one area where, and you can see even in the campaign, it has not come up. The issue of foreign policy has not come out as pronounced, because I think they are aware that what President Kenyatta has set in motion is going to go along for a while. You can't make some radical changes there. So issue of foreign policy hasn't been more pronounced in the election as much. And I think is informed by that look, already this gentleman has set in motion some very good deals, some very good prospects. So whoever comes in perhaps might just want to tweak here and there because of his several interests, but I don't foresee any major radical shift in that.
And in respect of time, I'm going to just end it there, because I'm sure you have to do a few other things there. Thank you so much for letting us know on how things are going on in Kenya and everything that's happening there. I don't know if you have any last comments that you'd like to make, or
no. I appreciate for the opportunity.
No, thank you so much.
And sorry for shifting the time.
No. It's absolutely not a problem at all. Thank you very much. I don't know, Zengi, if you have any last things.
I don't have any last words. So for those that are listening, the Kenyan election is on the 9th of August, major general election. Keep an eye on that. It's a major election for the continent. As you have heard from the episode we were discussing, it has ripple effects across Africa. And for those youths who don't want to vote, please vote. I don't know whether you're for or against apathy, but I personally am against apathy. So go ahead and vote if you are a Kenyan listening to this episode.
Hit that notification bell. Thank you so much for joining Africa for Dummies. Make sure to hit that notification bell if you're not getting any updates on the selection. We're gonna try
And
as
leave
much
a five-star
rating on
preferably.
on whatever platform that you're using. Just follow us on everything at Africa for Dummies, and look out for the next episode.